Yeah, let's talk about New Zealand. So we've been following what's been going on down there because it's been absolutely crazy. I love the Kiwis. I visited New Zealand a number of years ago. Very, very nice people. Beautiful country, of course. And they've lost their mind. And the people there have been writing to us on a regular basis telling us, like, we cannot get news here. It's censored. We can't get, we have to watch Redacted to get news about what's going on in our own country. What's really happening in New Zealand. It's really, really troubling. This week, New Zealand Intelligence Service has released new booklets telling the public that if they see something, say something. And what's in these booklets is incredibly troubling because, you know, it'd be one thing if it was like, hey, in this booklet, here's a little tip. If you see somebody making a bomb, maybe you say something about it. I know I would. I'd be like, hey, there was a guy in the park. He was hanging out on the park bench. My kids were playing. And he was building a pipe bomb. I'm going to call the cops on that. I want to make people to be safe. But if my neighbor didn't agree with COVID lockdowns, or my neighbor decided to not get vaccinated, or my neighbor was maybe organizing a protest against government mandates around COVID.
Or even more innocuous than that, if my neighbor was saying, I really want my kids to go to school despite lockdown measures, I really don't want my children to wear masks in schools, then that is something, what the booklet calls them, is how to recognize extremists.
So you're an extremist. I'm going to, hey, there's a woman who lives next door to me. She wants her kids to go to school.
Now, some of it is, kind of odd. Like, is this person socially isolated? Does this person switch religions mysteriously? Do these pieces, some of it's kind of vague.
Does this person switch genders all the time?
Gender doesn't really play into it, but it's like, do they spend a lot of time alone? Do they spend a lot of time online? Do they get angry about? Yeah, that's true.
So it sounds a lot like me. So anyway, here's a news report that we pulled and found this online today, which is a really good condensed version of it. There's some moments that are replay the parts that I want to show you. So I'm just going to play this. This is the news report breaking down these booklets. Watch.
Our Secret Service is launching an initiative to help us identify people who may have been radicalised.
Know the Signs details dozens of indicators that a friend or family member could be planning a terror attack. As Adam Hollingworth reports, the move comes as our spy chiefs identify a new and worrying type of terrorism.
Time was when the intelligence services were never seen, never heard. But now they're loudly proclaiming your country needs you, to keep an eye on those you know, and if necessary, dob them in.
Recognising a potential warning sign and then alerting NZSAS or police could be the vital piece in the puzzle that ultimately saves lives.
To that end, they're publishing a guide called Know the Signs to help us all identify potential terrorists in our midst.
To pay attention and to be alert, so that if they see or hear about something that seems off, that worries them and concerns them.
Like that little squiggly hair piece, because that would, if I saw that, I'm calling someone on that. By the way,
that does seem off. Also, I had a hard time with the accent.
She might be Kryptonian.
Yeah.
She might be Kryptonian. Now, come on.
Okay, but I mean, she thinks that looks good, so let her be. We don't make fun of people based on their appearances. But I lost my train of thought.
Don't.
I don't think we should do that.
Anyway, go ahead. Derail.
I couldn't understand the anchor's accent.
What's that?
Whatever the news anchors, when they tossed to this piece, their accent was so thick I needed subtitles. I didn't understand it. I apologize if anybody feels like that about my accent, but I needed to hear that again. We don't need to replay it. Go ahead.
No, I want to get to the good part here.
The person is on the road to actually committing an attack.
The SIS has listed around 50 signs, from obvious ones, like writing on a weapon, as happened in Christchurch, to
a person who is really developing an us versus them worldview.
Authorities say they're usually closely monitoring 40 to 50 potential terrorists. These people used to be motivated by their white identity or by their faith. But in the past 6 months, a third group has emerged, those motivated by politics.
And so it could be the COVID measures that the government took, or it could be other policies that are interpreted as infringing on rights, and it's what I sometimes describe as a kind of hot mess of ideologies and beliefs, fueled by conspiracy theories.
The launch of the initiative Know the Signs is an indicator that the security services know that they can't do it alone. They need the help of the public.
Yeah. So thank you.
I mean, what they're saying here, and I read the draft of this a couple of weeks ago, is that someone who maybe was a radicalized, religious extremist, or who used to be motivated by their whiteness, they say.
Right, their white identity.
Is now the same as someone who questions COVID government decisions, that those things are just as dangerous and the government wants to hear about it. The fact that she even mentioned it, that they're upset what the government did, I mean, I think that's a pretty common theme. Most of us are pretty upset at what we've been through, but that expressing that online now becomes dangerous enough that we need to weaponize your fellow citizens. I mean, this is the life that, Portugal went through in the 70s when the police had people telling on each other. What's the name of the
secret police?
The secret police, yeah. Right? People have lived through times like this, and they do not say that was an awesome thing. No, history never says that was great.
No, the same thing was happening in Australia. It's like, tell on your neighbors. If you see that they want their kids to go to school, or that they don't like, COVID lockdowns. And are they white? Because their white identity. And we saw the same thing reflected in the United States, the Department of Homeland Security, right? Mm-hmm. The Department of Homeland Security and Secretary Mayorkas saying the same thing on 9/11, didn't he? Yeah, he was saying actively, hey, it used to be foreign threats, but now it's white supremacists who live here at home who are radicalized.
But nobody wants to get on the government radar. And now if you just like a hashtag of do not comply, when you see these mask mandates coming back and the hashtag do not comply is trending, if you interact with that in any way, you're on the government radar. Nobody wants that.
Yeah. So stay at home. We'll provide you with your food. It'll be a plant-based mix of crap with seed oils, so it's not real meat. Right? We will control your currency, so you don't have to worry about, getting any of that cash anymore. We're going to go cashless with a digital currency that we will control. And we will provide you with like a universal basic income, so you don't really have to leave the house. You can work from home remotely. Therefore, we'll cut down on CO2 emissions, all of that. We won't need cars anymore. We can eliminate fossil fuels. It'll be a utopia.
No, it will be an Orwellian society, because now you have to tell on your neighbors if they do anything outside of the ordinary.
Yeah, it's really, really disturbing. I mean, here is Ardern, the Prime Minister, on how this...
Jacinda.
Jacinda Ardern says this is how this, disinformation, which is what she said at the United Nations. So she's on board with this. This is all part of the plan. Listen.
The tools used to challenge the statehood of others are hidden and more complex. Traditional combat, espionage, and the threat of nuclear weapons are now accompanied by cyber attacks, prolific disinformation, and manipulation of whole communities and societies. Now, as leaders, we have never treated the weapons of old in the same way as those that have emerged. And that's understandable. After all, a bullet takes a life. A bomb takes out a whole village. A lie online or from a podium does not. But what if that lie, told repeatedly and across many platforms, prompts, inspires, or motivates others to take up arms, to threaten the security of others, to turn a blind eye to atrocities, or worse, to become complicit in them? What then? This is no longer a hypothetical. The weapons of war have changed. They are upon us and require the same level of action and activity that we put into the weapons of old. We recognise the threats that the old weapons created. We came together as communities to minimise these threats. We created international rules, norms, and expectations. We never saw that as a threat to our individual liberties. Rather, it was a preservation of them. The same must apply now as we take on these new challenges.
Okay, so she is saying that words need to be policed like weapons.
Yeah.
And so this is, this document, this handbook that was given out is just as concerning as that, but it is in line with what she had said, is that we need to make sure that words are not weaponized, and we're going to decide which words are weapons and which words aren't. And if it's anti-government, like the woman who was speaking, then that's a weapon. Only the government can use words in a way that it wants. But anything against the government is a weapon.